Fuck you, fuck your face, and fuck your day.
Suenan unos pocos en el caserío. Madrina me dicen que andan por ahí.
Interesting. He falls out again. This guy.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, there.
You good now?
I'm good.
Are you sure?
You sure I'm on?
You sure, man?
Sure I'm on. Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm good
yeah,
now.
all right, man.
Gentlemen.
You look like it.
This is Darren and Sadist. What's
Hello.
up, Shinobi Wan? Shinobi Wan
Hello, Shinobi-wan.
in the
Thank you,
chats.
Shinobi-wan. Hello. Hello, how's it going, guys?
What's good? What's going on? What's all that? What's happening? What's up, my niggas?
What's my name?
Today's topic is going to be about transference and projection.
Yeah, and among other things, today's topic is just going to be about, something I'm seeking to learn about just psychology, and potentially criminal psychology, and I've been really into true crime and stuff lately, and particularly stuff having to do with like learning about how to study a case and not actually get emotionally invested in it,
Mm-hmm.
and like trying to be emotionless in my assessment of it.
Yeah,
Because
buddy, you came to the
I
right
did
place.
that. I know, right? But like I was in a Friday Night Blaze, and I like described a case I was looking at where a person killed their family, and then I started laughing, and Hidden was like, "Well, why are you laughing?" And that like really stuck with me. Like I thought about that for a while afterwards, because I was like, "Why am I laughing?" Is the thing. And it's like, why do?
Yeah, I've actually said this multiple times before. Usually when I do live streams, most of the time, majority of the people, and I would say about 95 to 100% of the people in the live stream with me are usually psychopaths. That's typically how I pick my panel. So typically, most of the people that's going to be in a stream with me are going to be psychopaths at various degrees of the spectrum for all intents and purposes. So, and this is typically how I pick it. So basically, like I always joke about you being like Kiko Trin Jr. because you technically you technically exhibit a lot of the traits that I do for all intents and purposes when it comes down to it. It's all about how can you control it and how would it manifest in you later, or you're going to be one of them people that's going to be like the in the closet killer basically. You're the youth minister, priest, and everything, and youth group counselor, and you're murdering people, moonlighting, murdering people on the weekends and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where it's like I always talk about this when it comes to people because, like I said, to a certain extent, MGTOW the Wind's a psychopath. To a certain extent, Hidden MGTOW's a psychopath. Hidden's like on a lower end of the scale than most of the other people on the stream. Is typically how it works. Then you'll have like various other people that'll join in the stream, but typically the core group of people are typically psychopaths for all intents and purposes. That's basically how I pick the stream, despite the fact I'll always say because I always say I hate to have people on the stream who 100% want to 100% ride with me or agree with me on everything, because that would make for a boring stream for all intents and purposes. So what you're actually seeing is what I actually see, the things that I actually see in all of you for all intents and purposes. And this is why Hidden probably was more likely to ask you why you're laughing versus a Wind ask you why you're laughing for all intents and purposes. Because like I said, Hidden's on the low end of the psychopath scale than the rest of us for all intents and purposes. But he hangs with us, so like I said, I would like to do a live stream one day and call it the Seven Psychopaths because I could think of seven. I could think of everybody that I would love in that stream that would make it more interesting. Um,
How would you? So wait, just like since we're talking about this, how would you like the dynamic in Relentless? I mean, obviously the name implies what the dynamic is like, but
mhm,
with when it comes to like the whole Psyche Soap, Sherm,
Mr.
Forma,
Forma,
Three
yeah,
Amigos, are
yeah.
they like how like theirs is more of a it's not like they're not, I don't think that they're psychopathic.
No, they're not. The thing about those three, the reason why they fit in so nicely is typically because they all have a black sense of humor. That's pretty much all it really is. They have a black sense of humor, so typically they fit in quite nicely for the fact that every single last one of us also has a black sense of humor, along with Hidden, along with MGTOW the Wind, and people like that. They all have a black sense of humor.
Hmm.
Um, as you can realize. So it's one of those things where it's like because they have a black sense of humor, and True Sherm actually said that in a video. He actually said that he has a black sense of humor, but you know, Tico's is a bit worse, or Tico's is a lot worse for all intents and purposes. And I can't really say anything. Anything that the sad part about that is, believe it or not, anything that True Sherm actually says about me is very true. Unless he's over exaggerating, saying that I held him at gunpoint and told him to make us do a live stream like he did the one time. I didn't do that shit, but okay, we'll run with this.
Hmm.
But typically, like I was saying, all three of the three amigos basically have a dark sense of humor or a black sense of humor for all intents and purposes, and this is typically why they fit in with us nicely because every single last one of us also has a dark sense of humor. This is typically why Psyche Soap fits in with us. This is typically why MGTOW the Wind fits in with us. This is typically why Mr. Forma fits in whenever he shows up, and True Sherm fits in. So the whole entire premise of Relentless is based off of that movie, um,
The one
The
with
Hateful
Samuel
Eight.
L. Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah, The Hateful Eight, and it's based on a lot of racial humor and the racial humor and a lot of other humor that go along with it that would be considered taboo. So it's one
Like
of
I
those things.
realize, like with my dark sense of humor, it's like when I do racial stuff, I tend to make them laugh. But then when I come out of like left field with this some like wind type humor, like from Psyche Soap, I get like a lot of what?
Yeah, I
And
know,
then
right? And that,
Mr.
and
Formal will try
it's
to bring it back to black like to like racial humor, and then True Sherm will try to like expound upon it, like when
well,
it
and the
comes to
sad
like
part about that,
yeah.
and this is typically another reason why True Sherm fits in the mix too, because True Sherm does have a dark sense of humor, but at the same time, True Sherm is a bit of a born comedian for all intents and purposes. He has hella timing when it comes down to it. He might fumble on his words, but he has hella timing. Um, it's typically how it works when it comes to True Sherm.
Hmm.
Um,
He's kind of committed to his like comedic timing and like
yeah, like
his
I
words.
have pretty good timing, but usually mine's come in a form of a backhand or or in the form of a truth. And typically that's when people usually laugh at me the most when I'm actually telling the truth. I'm like, no, dude, it's not
The
funny.
truth,
I'm
yeah.
being deadly serious. Like, I'm getting tired of this shit. Like, this bitch want to have more children. And everybody's just busting out laughing at me. It's like, no, dude, I'm serious. Like, I don't want any more. Like, legit. And like, people just start laughing at me. And it's simply how it works. Like, every time somebody laughs at me, it comes from my truth. Or, I refer to it as a laugh at my pain. It's typically how it works. So my humor basically comes at my pain or my expense. Whereas
Yeah. Well, it's and there's some genius to that, and there's some taste to that. Like
yeah,
when it
because the
comes
sad part
to
about that is I
art,
relate to
and when it
everybody
comes to
because despite the fact that everybody don't want to say it, I'm pretty sure there are some people out there that's actually thought about what I thought about doing to my one daughter, like getting her in her chest and throwing her in the bushes. They may not be
hmm
thinking about that with their daughter, but there's probably like a relative out there that they've like, oh yeah, I feel you on that, Tico. I feel you on that one. And and the sad part about that, I do it and the way I deliver it, it's kind of like a shock thing. Like everybody's shocked that I said it, but it's very funny at the same time. It's typically how it works. So that's typically how my humor actually comes across. Like, and this is typically why I have darker humor than most people. Where I'll honestly legit like say, well, sometimes the motherfucker need to get his throat slit, and people go,
And
"Wow,
meanwhile, I'll be
Tico,
like,
wow."
Mega Man has like a dark sense of humor, but he's also not a psychopath.
Well, no, because the thing with Mega Man is he doesn't have. I wouldn't really consider his sense of humor dark as much as I would consider it like a. He's basically like he's basically more of a class clown. Um, is the best way I can describe it. No shade on Mega Man, but he's like that one kid in your class that was just the funniest that would come out of nowhere and do the most off the wall shit and make everybody laugh for all intents and purposes. Let it be slapstick, let it be toilet bathroom humor, let it be all that stuff for all intents and purposes. And his troll humor basically is on par with
True,
like
yeah.
a his troll humor is
Class
basically
clown.
on par with stuff like that for all
Because
intents and
he like
purposes.
outwits a
He's
lot of
more like
trolls. Yeah.
yeah, he's more like a Charlie Chaplin, whereas I'm more like a Jackie Chan. Get my hand hurt, be shaking my hand in the middle of the shit, like no, seriously, it hurt. Like Whereas like that's the
People
type
were
of humor.
laughing.
Yeah, and people are laughing like no, seriously, like and it's like one of those things where it's like it comes across funny based on my delivery because it's one of those things where it's like I'm being deadly serious and everybody's laughing and it's like okay, well that's me then. And Mega Man's basically would be considered what I refer to as a class clown, which is actually very funny and a very good gift to have to actually fit in. And the irony to that is the class clown is able to fit in for this reason. Whereas, like, if we had a comedian, if we had like a comedian that's versatile, like a good example, True Sherman's a very good comedian. He's very versatile and he knows he knows when to interject. He knows comedic timing basically, so he can always interject something and it make it funny. Whereas like if I interject something, it's going to be a backhanded comment and it's going to be one of those things where it's like I'm being sarcastic or cynical, and it's
Yeah.
funny to people. You're not quite there with that, but like you're there with the random come into a fucking stream and just start roasting motherfuckers out of nowhere and catching people off guard. That's what actually makes you and unique. Because like you don't know half the motherfuckers in the stream, but you sitting there roasting everybody in the fucking panel like you did
Well,
on
I
Money
think,
AD stream.
like I said, I think it comes down to like experience, like art. Art is experience is like a balance between knowing what's appropriate and then just going ahead and full ahead and break the mold.
Well, the
So it's
sad part
like,
about that is you sometimes display some of the same characteristics. What I always talk about, like commit and own it. What you did in Money AD stream was like a prime example of committing and owning it. You had no cares. You gave zero fucks. You basically just came in, stole the whole fucking show, and ran with it, and then stepped out the stream like without
yeah.
no explanation or nothing. Basically, it's basically like me walking in a room of a bunch of people arguing, and then yelling, "Shut the fuck up! Before I kill everybody in this room!" Please.
Because there was a lot of fuck shit going on in that live
Yeah, like
stream.
this,
So I was
like
just,
then I go
uh,
nicely,
yeah.
please, and I walk out the room, and everybody's looking at me like, did he just seriously act like he just didn't yell at everybody and then say he'll kill everybody in the room, and he ended with, please, like this nigga, like, and that's typically where a lot of the stuff comes from with me, because I literally give no fucks. I give zero fucks anytime I'm in a room, and it's one of those things where if I get agitated, you're more likely going to hear a lot of stuff. And like typically, I remember the one time I was actually in a server and everybody was just going back and forth, just arguing, and I just said, "Shut the fuck up, please." Everybody got quiet, like, well, damn, Tico, you have to do all that. Like, well, it needed to be
Well,
done.
yeah, and a lot of it is like your environment too, because we do the streams and we're all in a different spot. So
Mhm.
a lot of times we'll curtail, or like for example, like on Absolute Knowledge stream yesterday, like a lot of people were trying to get in, but TFM was in the stream. So out of respect for TFM, like not Absolute Knowledge or Mac just pretty much like didn't let anybody in. It's like we'll do that sometimes in order to gain or in order to show loyalty to somebody or to gain trust or establish some sort of uh to get to know somebody, because a lot of us use psychology to sort of like feel things out when we're, especially when we're on the StreamYard where nobody's showing their face, we can't actually see each other and or relate to each other like visually. So it's like
Mhm.
some people choose to have like more visceral descriptions when, especially when they're trying to be humorous, because it's like you don't have any physical thing to attach that to. You just have what the person's saying. And then so like that kind of goes into projection and or transference, because these are like terms I've been trying to learn. The projection I don't understand nearly as much as transference. So if I could break, but to break it down, it's like transference is when you get you bring something from like a primary relationship when you were younger, and you sort of put that on, or you sort of like um
Transference would be equivalent to an alpha widow. Everything after that basically has to be that for all intents and
has to
purposes.
be that. Is
Yeah.
that exactly? That's what I thought of it as. Is like from now
Or it's
on,
it's it's
I
nothing
can't
more than
really get past it.
transferring.
Yeah.
It's basically transferring something so you're transferring a feeling or a notion or an idea onto that person. The same thing. It's kind of sort of like projection, but projection is a bit different. Whereas like projection, you're doing it in the midst of stuff. Whereas transference, you're doing it subconsciously or consciously to somebody. Where like a good example of that would be the way I
What
rate
about
Mina.
simping?
Like
Is
no,
simping transference? Oh,
what the way I rate me, like the hierarchy of women that I've actually dated. Mina's at the top of the list. The Shari would be at the second, would be second in line, and I would say the Cartel Princess would be like third, with the Asian woman tying with the Cartel Princess, depending on the situation or moment. Um, it's typically how it works. It's basically, and the sad part about that, when I also talk about that, there's also a template of a woman that all the women that I've ever dated have to actually meet. So it's one of those things where I'm literally transferring that template woman onto all these women. If they don't fit this template woman, they can't go any further. It's typically how it works. So now I'm transferring that template, and it's like I'm putting it over all of them to see if it fits.
so like when it comes to manipulation, I think if you look at projection, that's more of a tool that's used to get into people's emotions, whereas
Well,
like
projection
transference is more used to the
transference is
gatekeeping
more or
people's.
less or transferring something that you want or something that you are or something. It's basically a subconscious thing when you transfer something onto somebody. Transference is like typically doesn't happen actively. It typically it's basically what I talk about when I talk about women in relationships. Typically, when a woman gets into her next relationship, the reason why she feels entitled is because to her, you're basically a continuation of the last relationship. So she's never broke up and she's always been in a relationship. This is typically why we always talk about monkey branching, why women typically can swing on to the next thing like nothing happened,
Mhm.
because in all technicality, women never really take a break between men unless they like get a hard break basically on them.
Yeah,
And
and it
typically
seems
women
to
so
be a
women
hard
so
thing.
women are able
Yeah.
to the fact that women are able to monkey branch to the next man, all the everything transfers with them for the fact that they've technically never really left a relationship and they've been in a relationship this whole entire time in their mind. You see what I'm saying? So women are able to transfer, you know, feeling entitled to the next man for the fact that they were technically with that man while we were with the last man, and it's technically how it works. It's typically that's pretty much women's mentality. You're like, you nigga, you've always been here, so I deserve to be spoiled. It's typically women's desires, but you as a man, you're like, nigga, we've only been dating for like a week. What do you mean you deserve to be spoiled? Like in a man's mind, but in a woman's mind, bitch, I've been here. I deserve like gifts and presents and shit and all this other great shit. Um, and that's pretty much how
So
that stuff works.
does it? So I see you said like when you're still in the when women are still in a relationship, they are technically they're transferring all that stuff onto the next person,
Yeah.
and
Let it be
then
emotions, let it
yeah.
be everything, basically. It'd be like if you were to, how can I put it nicely? Let's just say an easy transfer. Let's just say you start with an account at a bank, basically, and you take and you move to another. Let's just say you transfer to, let's just say you start with a basic checking account at the bank. Okay, cool. Now this checking account was cheap and is what you can afford at the time that you actually got the checking account. Let's just put it that way. So all the stuff that you got in this checking account is what you can actually afford. Okay, cool. So, let's just say you start gaining ground and gaining press, and you start getting more money. More money starts coming into your account. Now you're actually using your debit card more or your credit card more, and now you need a better account to accommodate the amount of times you actually use your debit card. So let's just say typically we'll say about like you get like 7 transactions on your basic account. When you start moving up in the ranks and you start moving your card more, you get unlimited. So you don't get charged for any of the stuff that you take out. It's typically how it works. So what happens is you
Mhm.
transfer to another account seamlessly through the bank, basically, without anything changing besides just the number of the account. You see what I'm saying? And half the time, banks are so good, they don't even have to change the number of the account. The number of the account stays the same. The account just upgrades, if you know what I mean. So typically, it's a transference with an upgrade. And that's pretty much what women do. They transfer with upgrade for all intents and purposes. It's like
Mhm.
you might have been driving a Nissan Sentra. Now all of a sudden now you're driving a freaking Lamborghini, or you're driving a freaking Mercedes Benz now in this next relationship. And it's technically
Right.
how it works. They transfer up they pretty much upgrade up for all intents and purposes, and they transfer and upgrade. And it's pretty much how it works when it comes to transference. So it's one of those things where you
Mhm.
have to understand. What's up, like you said, what's up, Shinobi One? What's up, Mr. fucking hidden Mr. fucking MGTOW and
And
whoever else
Ghost
is in this
Rider,
lovely thing? Ghost Rider,
yeah, Ghostface.
Ghostface.
Um, so then what happens then? Is that I think it's a problem, but before that, it's with men and projecting. But before that, I mean,
Projection would be something that's done actively in the middle of stuff. Typically, women are good at this, and also a lot of men are good at this shit too, because they typically pull this shit off all the fucking time. This is typically how I know where men stand psychologically. Typically, how it works is when they project something onto you, that'd be like me. That'd be like if you were me to come to you and say, "Well, your kids is bothering me." So, yeah, you're like, "Nigga, I don't have any kids. What do you mean my kids is bothering you? Them is your
mhm.
kids, nigga." Like, I'm basically projecting my problem onto you by saying they're your kids, basically. I mean, that's a bit of an extreme thing, but typically women do this.
Well, like I
Um,
said, it's just to get. I think it's more of like an invasive thing to sort of get you to make the decision. Whereas like transference is something that I guess protects a
and the sad
person
part
from.
about that is transference. Transference is basically done subconsciously, whereas projection is done to proactively and consciously. On top of that, is meant to manipulate and sway things. This is typically how women get away with a lot of the arguments that they get away with, or
So
they'll.
like I think like a maelstrom of workplace gossip. I think it has like a couple elements of like of this like it's a lot of manipulation, but I think there's a
Well,
lot
it's
of
and
transference.
projection is manipulation, but um, a good example of that is remember the server incident in the one server.
I would was I wasn't there for that. Or
Yeah, well, you came
you
the
talking to me?
second day and starting some
Oh
shit
yeah,
after
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
did.
yeah. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that. I
that was
remember that.
what he was doing was basically projection.
I think yeah, well, because it's in it because you're already caught
Yeah, you're already caught with your
in the
pants down.
situation.
You're
But
already caught with your pants down. Everybody knows it, and now you're trying to project different. Now you're trying to argue something and project some shit that doesn't need to be argued or projected for all intents and purposes.
well here
That,
and
that
here's the
doesn't
thing
fit
like that
everybody.
I
Now
think
you're trying to
about.
make everybody else sound
Uh-huh.
like a good example of that when he said, "What makes you more red pill than me?" Or what you trying to say? You won't hit that too? No, I wouldn't hit that. You're lying. You're lying. No, you're projecting your low ass standards onto me. I said I wouldn't hit that. There's a reasoning for me not wanting to hit that. Just because you have low
Yeah,
standards and
or
you're
anybody else that says
taking a
that.
cow, that don't
Yeah,
mean I'll
I
actually
don't
do
know
something.
that. Or
Yeah.
like when it because like because you said like you have the townhouse and then the like I think like the townhouse people whenever they judge people without knowing the fact that it could happen to them,
Mhm.
like that's a lot of that's like a lot of that's a lot of transference
That's
because it's like
transference.
you're
Yeah.
trying to.
Um,
Okay, gotcha. I was kind of thinking about it the other way around, like maybe townhouse, like the whole townhouse nigga thing.
townhouse niggas
It
basically do a lot of transference because they try to equate their life to everybody else's life, and they try to make it sound like they're equal when in fact they're not fucking equal, or they make it sound like they had the same opportunity when in fact they didn't have the same opportunity. Like I know a lot of townhouse niggas that grew up in the townhouse with a silver spoon in their mouth, but they'll treat like people from the hood like they had the same opportunities, like they grew up in the same damn neighborhood, when in fact they didn't. Another good example of that is if your mom is if your mom works for somebody and your dad works for like an airline or something like that, or your dad works for some crazy company, basically, people always think, well, why can't black people be like this? Well, there's a difference in economic mobility for all intents and purposes. So therefore,
Right.
not all black
Hmm.
people can have that same mobility. The sad part about that, can it happen? Yeah. But the problem is with that is you have to unteach a lot of fuckery that went on for that to actually take place for black people to have upwards mobility. And the sad part about that, for that to actually take place, black people would have to accept the fact that they would have to step forward and make the necessary changes to their neighborhood for it to actually look like they actually want changes and want things done for their neighborhood. Is typically how it works. So it's one of those things where it's like it's a two system thing. It has to be on top. All the fuckery has to be untaught, but that requires black people to notice that this shit is going on and didn't want to make the necessary
Oh, get it.
changes
So
to
then when
to
you get the
unfuck
left,
themselves, basically.
or
So it's
when
like
black people, when you catch them, when you try to catch them in a what are you doing to prevent this, and then
they
they
typically
start to
project
say
like, well,
project you.
it's
Yeah. Okay.
society, or it's the white man, or it's this, it's that, it's this. It's like, no, nigga, it's you, nigga. I don't see a white
Mm.
man here. I don't see society here. I see you, nigga. And it's pretty much what it is. Like poor black people were projecting a heartbeat. They'll project all their problems in just to justify the means in their actions for all intents and purposes. It's typically how the shit works, because they don't have to take responsibility, because kind of like women, society kind of sort of absolves them of responsibility. And typically when you got people like the Democrats, they pretty much treat them like they ain't shit, and they treat them like they can't find the fucking DMV, or they don't have ID, or they don't
One
know
thing
how
I
to they
notice
don't
about
know how to
the
operate
left,
as a human being by themselves without the DNC stepping in, basically.
there's like the I think what happens is they get so woke that they like phenomena happens almost when you're watching true crime too, where you
Well,
think
no, the
like
sad part about that is
if
black
the
black
person
black people, poor
commit the
black people
crime.
never get woke.
Mhm.
They stay the same way they are. Because the sad part about that is, when you're let's think of it like this. I'm gonna try to simplify it for you. Think of it like this: poor black people. Think of it like an overbearing mother or a lawnmower mother. Pretty much that's what the DNC is to black people in the United States. They're pretty much lawnmower parents, basically. So typically, what happens? Because I talked about this. What happens with lawnmower parents is, instead of black people actually facing adversity, so they can actually grow as human beings, they'll pretty much mow down everything for them and make their path very easy. It's typically how it works, which is different from a helicopter parent, which basically just hover over their child to make sure they're doing everything they need to do. Whereas a lawnmower parent is pretty much mowing down everything in their path and in their wake, basically,
Well, they're
to
like
make sure that
staving off a lot of the bad
black people have an easy
experiences.
path. And the sad part of with this is, with this easy path is, black people rely on the DNC more and will want to vote for the DNC more for this reason, because they're beholden to the DNC because they made their path easy. What they don't realize is, making their path easy is what's keeping them in the mess that they're in the first damn place. That's pretty much that's pretty
Well,
much how
yeah.
that works in a
I mean,
nutshell.
I think like they ignore parts of like the disorder that kind of staving off adversity or bad experiences brings, and like you see it a lot where it's like, does the person commit the crime or does the disorder that they have commit the crime? It's like a lot of people are more likely to like apologize or to pretty much like dehumanize or write off the person because it makes them feel better to think that the disorder is the cause of the problem and not the fact that a person just lives a normal mundane suburban life and then does something crazy, and like that's actually a part of their psychology. Like it is who they are that makes them do it. It isn't the disorder that they're diagnosed with that makes them do it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like with the whole monkey branching and kind of hypergamy, how it's so invasive, or at least how maybe if it is visible, a lot of men and women ignore it because they like to think that it's never going to happen to them, or they're not the ones that it like they can only ever see it. They can't experience it themselves. If they ever get called out on it, they're going to project. But
They're
if
going to
they're ever
project or
trying to
blame
work out their
somebody else,
problems,
basically. They're going to
yeah,
project or transfer blame or, project the blame onto somebody else is typically how it works. And the sad part about it, when it comes to women, the same way we view women in the manosphere is the same way we should view African Americans that live in the ghettos. Because technically they do the same fucking thing at the end of the day, whether we like it or not. And before anybody get in here, I'm black, so shut the fuck up. And Yam is also black, so shut the fuck up. Continuing right along. So what happens with that is basically black people, just like women, are absolved of all wrongdoings. Black people in the hood, because of the DNC are absolved of all wrongdoings for all intents and purposes. So if a black person punches out a cop and he gets shot after that, it's the cop's fault it's the cop's fault, that it transpired that far, and it's the cop's fault and he should be tried basically. Even if the cops are in the right, it's basically the cop's fault. That's typically how the DNC treats black people. No matter what a black person does, it doesn't justify being shot. Even if a black person shooting at a cop, even if a black person grabs a cop's taser, even if a black cop's resisting arrest, well, sometimes, shooting somebody because they're resisting arrest is a bit extreme. Maybe you should tase them, maybe you should do other things before you actually shoot them. Yeah, I will agree with that. However, when you're resisting arrest, there's consequences to your actions. It's simply how it works. If a cop is telling you to get on the ground and you don't get on the ground, shit's going to happen. If a cop is telling you to get out the car with your hands on your head, shit's going to happen. However, I will say this for a couple of the cases, if one cop's telling you to get out the car with your hands up and get on your knees, and the other one's telling you to get on the ground on your stomach at the same time while the other one's yelling, get on your knees, then that's a problem that needs to be addressed between communication between the officers and the suspect, basically. It's simply how that works. Because I've actually seen cases where one officer's yelling, put your hands put your hands behind your head, and one's yelling, get down on your face, basically on the ground. So it's one of those things where it's like, you can't have it both ways. Unless you tell the man to drop to the ground, flat on his face, and put his hands behind his head. That'd
they
be the
do
only
that in
way
the
you can pull that
military
off.
too. They yell a bunch of different things to try to break you down.
Well, that's
where you're
different.
making mistakes.
See, that's different. When you do it in the military, you're basically doing it so you can train them on their attention span, or train them to actually not pay attention, to not paying attention to the secondary things. Basically, you want them to perform a primary goal. All the shit that they're yelling on top of that is basically to confuse them so they can trip up. It's basically like playing Simon Says. It's a much more complex way of playing Simon Says, where they say, Simon Says, touch your nose. You touch your nose, obviously, because Simon Says. The minute I say touch your wrist, and you touch your wrist, you're not following directions because Simon didn't say touch your wrist. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, and that's typically how it works with the military. They're basically training you to pay attention to a certain thing and honing your attention. Basically they're training you to honing your attentions. They're paying attention skills or your comprehension skills, so you can pay attention to what they need you to pay attention to. Because when you're in a battlefield, that ability to do that is your life, or you or your comrade's life, basically, or death. It's simply how it works. So that's different when they do it in the military versus when a cop does it. That's just miscommunication and poor communication altogether. Whereas in the military, they're training you mentally to prepare for like various things being thrown at you in a battlefield. It's typically how that works.
Yeah, whereas like when it's with a different thing, it's more just like a honey-do list, or kowtow and or acquiesce, not actually to prepare you for any sort of actual struggles.
Well,
because
when it's the military is trying to prepare you for actual combat. Because when you're in combat, and this is something that people don't seem to understand, when you're in combat, you take in so much fucking information at one time. When your body's in danger and you're in combat zone, or when you're in constant peril, your body takes in more information than it would normally take in had you just been walking around like downtown Cleveland or something like that, basically. Because when you're in a war zone, there's shit falling around you. People are dangerous. Some people look plain. Dangerous people look like people or look like insurgents. And typically, you're basically trying to absorb all the information you can so you can react accordingly to keep yourself alive. It's pretty much how it works. So typically,
you have a bunch of people. Yeah, you have a bunch of people like bunch of people in the city like flying around in the tin can and stuff, and you have peril lurks around every corner the same way, and you don't have trained professionals around you like you do in the military. So
Yeah.
you can still feel that same level of like if you think about the city as a bowl, everybody in that bowl is Cocoa Puffs. And whenever all the men leave the city, there's no more milk in that cereal bowl, so it just becomes like a
Well,
fucking
yeah, but
hot.
you're going a little too far with this one. And you're going a little off track with this one. Basically, how it works is basically in the military it's different for the reason that in a city you're not trained to take on all this information unless you grew up in a society that teaches you guerrilla warfare. Then you're trained to do this. It's simply how it works. The sad part about that, a lot of Americans aren't really trained to do this. This is typically one of the many reasons why the U.S. military is one of the best military is the best military in the world, because they train you all this stuff that you should know automatically, but you don't know, but they retrain you in the shit that you should know. So they make you a better version of yourself. They make you a better version of a man or woman, basically, no matter how you look at it. So it's simply one of those things. They teach you all the stuff that you should have learned, but you didn't quite learn on top of the stuff that they need you to learn to make you a better human being. So this is typically why they teach you walking, tactical walking and stuff like that, how to, walk at a move at a very rapid pace, very quietly, shit like that. They teach you how to actually walk properly on your feet. Whereas if you're in America, if you ever notice, a lot of people walk around stomping all the damn time, whereas they actually teach you how to actually walk properly in the military, so you can actually stave off injuries from stomping around like you ain't got no damn sense. This is typically why you see a lot of the women in this day and age. If you ever see them walking in slips or slides or shoes, basically, they're always making loud contact with the fucking
Shuffling.
floor because it's just that's how they learn to walk. And you'll hear some dudes do that shit too. But typically, men are a bit better about it than women are. Whereas women will walk around, It sounds like you're at a discotheque when you hear women walking around you, basically. And you can't really blame it on heels for the fact that when they're not wearing heels, they literally do the same fucking thing. And this is typically why women have a problem with their feet, their back, and all the other parts of their body, basically, because they don't know how to walk properly. Whereas most men in society walk properly on their feet, and they don't have as many problems as women. So what that lets me know is women aren't built for this brand new society for this reason, because women walk around stomping or pounding their feet on a pavement, literally, and men walk around like they're supposed to. So this is typically one of those things that comes from a good example of this is basically transference. Men were able to transfer that skill. I mean, despite the fact that they relearned it in the military to do it better, men were able to transfer that skill to like the concrete jungle for all intents and purposes, if you know what I mean. Well, here's what I'm going to say with that. So typically, how it works is men being hunter and gatherers, basically going out to get the food and stuff like that. They typically learn how to stay on their feet for a long period of times, walk on their feet properly, run properly, and hunt properly for all intents and purposes. So therefore, when they come back and they start making improvements to their society, they're typically able to transfer a lot of those skills over to society. That's pretty much how it works. Whereas women, they weren't in the hunting parties, therefore they're going to lack a lot of the abilities that they should transfer over with them for all intents and purposes. The best way I can describe it to you. So what happens with that is women end up stomping like they do, whereas there's some men that stomp around like that, but majority of the people who do all the stomping, let it be hospital, let it be workers, let it be hospital, let it be anybody, in any type of job or any field. Basically, it's going to be women. It's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things where it's like this is typically why women always get injured in the military with their legs and stuff like that, their shins, their shin bones and the bones in their shins and legs and feet and shit like that. Typically, tends to be like some of the higher places that they get injured. Then you got also their pelvis too, because how they're walking. If you're walking improperly, you're gonna fuck up. You're gonna fuck up the alignment of everything, and it's gonna fuck up your pelvis. So you're gonna have you might end up with some what's it called not slip disc. What's the name of that sciatic problems basically. Sciatic nerve problems, basically, or
Yeah.
back problems and shit like that. Because
How you
sadly,
walk.
it's how you walk, and this is typically why women always want their feet rubbed. And if you're gonna walk improperly, I'm not gonna rub your feet. If you learn to walk properly, then maybe we'd talk. But it's one of those things. I'm not touching feet any fucking way, so don't put them on me. Um, but it's pretty much what it is. So when it comes down to it, This
Hmm.
is typically why women suffer more in society built by men because they're not. I mean, they can be taught to do it, but let's just face it. You can teach a woman something, but she's going to revert back to her old ways for all intents and purposes. It's pretty much how it works. Whereas, like, if you teach a man to walk a proper way, he's going to pretty much continuously walk that proper way. Especially especially if it accommodates him and makes his life better and much more comfortable, he's pretty much going to do that. Typically, how it works. So it's one of those things where it's like men are going to keep it up, whereas women are going to go back to it and say then complain about it not working for them when in fact they actually just dropped it and decided to go back to normal. This is typically why you hear women talk about they can't lose weight. It's not the fact that they can't lose weight; they're not putting in the effort to lose the weight, or they get
Well,
disenfranchised at the gym
yeah,
because what'll happen is they're losing weight, they're losing fat, but they're gaining
yeah.
muscle. So they're not seeing the exchange in weight loss basically. Because typically what happens is I would always say the first month and a half, you're typically going to gain weight. You're going to gain muscle weight. That's typically how it works. So about the first month and a half to 2 months, you're going to gain a lot of muscle weight. So you're not going to see any difference in weight loss your first month or so. Depending on your exercise and depending on how hard you're hitting the gym and stuff like that, you're not going to see any change in your weight. Typically how it works is after you build back all that muscle that your body actually needs to move on, then you start dropping the rest of that weight. It's typically how it works. So first you're gonna be first what happens is when you start, working out, the fat that you lose transfers into muscle that you need. So fat that you lose, muscle you need. Fat that you lose, muscle you need. Fat that you lose, muscle you need. Then eventually there's a threshold where your body says, okay, I have enough muscle now. You see what I'm saying? I have enough muscle now, so therefore, it's one of those things where like because eventually after a certain amount of time, you're gonna be gaining weight. You're gonna be gaining muscle weight. It's typically how it works. So after a certain amount of time, what happens is now you're going to start losing weight now because now your body is properly where it needs to be so it can actually lose the actual weight. It's typically how it works. This is typically why people go to the gym and then drop out after a while because they're not seeing any changes in their routine when in fact your body has to rebuild back the shit that you pretty much destroyed, lost, or need to actually sustain your body. It's simply how it works. You know what I mean?
The one point that I wanted to bring up was about like, well, you got black pillars talking about genetic lottery,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the future, a lot of women will want designer babies, but they won't be able to transfer the proper skills to actually get those designer babies to, walk properly, eat healthy, exercise. Maybe they'd be genetically predisposed to all those good
Well, the sad part
habits,
about
but
it is they won't. Um, I mean, designer babies sound nice in theory, and you can pretty much get like you can make your baby look like any fucking thing you want. You have a black baby with hazel eyes and auburn hair or brown hair or something like that. You can have a white baby. You can have a white baby with platinum blonde hair and blue eyes,
a
basically.
white baby.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like you basically get to pick and choose. And the sad part about that is that's actually going on right now
And
today.
that will
If you
actually
have a
like
shit ton of money.
perpetuate more of this race, like unconscious racist bias, where people are like, I don't see color. Oh, but I want a white baby, or oh, but I want a black baby. I want like a mixed baby. It's like, but you said you don't. It's like there's no self awareness there.
Yeah, and the sad part about that, the reason why they want it is totally different from is not really a great reason to want to have a baby. Basically, just because it's
Mhm.
beautiful, that don't mean you should have a baby because it's beautiful. You should have a baby based on the fact that you want that baby and you love that
It's
baby
like
and you're
at
willing
least
to
with
take on you're willing to take on
yeah,
that baby's problems, societal
at,
problems
at
along
least
with
with the
it.
previous waves of feminism, we weren't really given a chance to see how women would really like if they had like a if they were given designer babies, like how their racism actually would show. And
Oh
now
yeah, it would
like the
show. It would
next
show. It
waves
would
is going
show.
to
It would
be
show heavy. And the sad part
exactly.
about that, you'll start seeing babies look a certain way, and it's the cold
Hmm.
hard truth. The
That's
sad part
racist.
about that, what they say, what scientists say is the perfect race right now, existing right now, belongs to the Puerto Ricans. What that means is they have the perfect genetic lottery. So If you were to drop them off in the middle of a desert, they'd be fine. If you were to put them in a cold climate, they'd be fine. If you were to, do anything with them unnecessarily or change any extremes that they need to go through, they would be fine. Typically, they say Puerto Ricans are the perfect human beings of this day when it comes to that type of stuff. And that's typically how it works. So it's one of those things where I don't really believe in mixing. Only time I believe in mixing is when you're in dire straits. So it's one of those things where I believe in segregation until you're in dire straits. So it's one of those things where it's like, let's just say a good example. What I mean by that is, let's just say this: you have two societies, they're on the brink of collapse because they're being hunted down to death, basically. So now you intermarry between those ones. That's fine. If you're just doing it willy-nilly because you think it might make a cool, cute-looking baby, no, you need to be punched in the fucking face. If you're doing it because you were forced to do it, I don't believe it should happen. Because the sad part about it is when you start desegregating people and putting them all together, somebody's going to have to suffer. There's always going to be that group of people whose necks are going to be stepped on so everybody can feel better. Or there's always going to be that need to be that group of people at the bottom so everybody can feel good about themselves.
And that's the
So
agenda.
that's
The
the problem that I
agenda is
have
so
with segregation.
short-sighted. Yeah, the agenda is so
I mean, that's the
short-sighted
problem
that
that I
it
have
just
with
wants.
desegregation because I really believe in segregation. It's typically how it
Yeah,
works.
right,
Unless
right.
you're in dire
That's the
straits,
best way.
you have
That's
to
the best way
crossbreed
for
to basically keep your lineage alive. That is the only way
exactly.
I believe in, coming together or integrating for all intents and
Yeah,
purposes.
because in reality, all of this, gender bending and race interracial decisions are all pretty much circumstantial because of like the agendas that have been sort of like carried out recently in the past few decades. So it's like
Mhm.
you don't have a conscious decision on how you feel about your own body because of the chemicals and the toxins that are put into it, whether like to your consent or not. Then with the whole window dressing and the whole affirmative action of the recent years, you still don't even have a choice if you like. You still don't have a conscious decision over the people that you work around, the people that you live around, the people that you choose to swipe right on, date, and or have sex and procreate with. And then people think that they have all this agency when they're really just following in the footsteps of what the like this agenda, which is just a short-sighted goal to make people seem more confused and less likely to go to their tribal wisdom and to segregate and to form
Well, yeah, and that's the thing though, because
complex hierarchy.
the neat thing about it is like I don't got no problem if you're going to integrate everybody into society, but I want everybody to be able to still practice their tribalism.
They
Because
should
at
all
the
be
end of
able
the
to
day,
be with their own people. They shouldn't
yeah,
be
the
like
sad part about
forced
that,
to
by
be
forcing
go.
everybody to coexist, you're going to pretty much create a dystopia, or you're going to create a lot of people who hate each other's fucking guts for all intents and purposes. We've pretty much seen this throughout the many years of the United States and other countries. When you force a bunch of people together, you're pretty much going to make for everybody hating each other. It's simply how it works. The sad part about that, you're not letting it happen naturally because you're taking away everybody else's sense of nationalism or sense of tribalism or culturalism, basically, that makes them unique from other people. When you start stripping away this shit, then now people have a problem. Nobody knows how to identify, knows where to identify to. So now everybody's resenting everybody because now everything's been stripped away. It'd be
Yeah,
like a good
but
example of
like,
that. It would be equivalent to
I'm
me
gonna write it
walking in
down.
your house and taking all the furniture out your fucking house. Like, wait, what? Why, Tico? Like, it's typically how it works. It's like and that's basically that'd be like on a, you know, a personal space level. Technically, that's what that's like doing when you start stripping away people's tribalism and culturalism from them, and you're trying to push other things onto them. Like that'd be like I said,
Well,
that'd be like me going out
you'll
taking
see a
all
lot
your
of people
furniture.
my age. They'll be like they'll date and then they'll say like we don't like labels, and that's kind of like anti-ritualizing. So it's like a lot of their Netflix and chill dates blur together. Then they don't realize the disorder that they're building in
Yeah.
their mate selection strategy because
Yeah, the sad part about
they
that,
see it
nobody
all
wants
the
to take
same. It's all the same.
responsibility. Nobody wants the
Mm.
responsibility. Nobody wants to take responsibility. And the sad part about that, when you start putting titles on, now people have to take responsibility, and people actually have to do some actual investing in work, basically, when it comes to it. This is typically why we have a bunch of people running around here just having sex and hooking up. And we got a bunch of women over here talking about where have all the eligible or economically attractive men gone, or where have all the good men gone? Well, you kind of sort of fucked it up with this free sex and love thing you got going on now. And it's typically like people always say, well, this is new. No, it's not new. If you remember the 70s, there was free sex and love all over the fucking place, and they were called hippies. And fast forward to today, what do we refer to the people now when they have a new trending thing or a new trending
Hipster.
part of town? Hipsters. My point exactly. So basically, you're repeating the past over and over again. Nothing new under the sun, like I always say. You're basically repeating things verbatim over and over again. Because the sad part about that is, what do you see now that you used to see back in the 80s? Boxes, froze, shit like that. Mohawks and shit like that. Those are
Oh
all
yeah.
recycled shit.
Well,
That's
think about the
all
word
recycled shit.
hipster, hippies, and hip hop, and like and hypocrite too. All of them are kind of like designed to keep people dependent on something like a trend or like say like their ideology or their ideas or
Hmm.
something. It's all to like keep people attached at the hip, like to conjoin them to their beliefs. So like you can't separate people from it, or else you would suffer trauma.
Yeah.
That's what you see most of the time when people are confronted about their beliefs. A lot of times they'll just blame whatever um, resentment that they have on
And
something, on some sort of factual evidence, when it's like, no, you're just making just be honest about it. You're making an emotional decision. You're not thinking it
and
through.
that's typically where like the whole entire lines between transference and projection actually starts getting blurred, because now you're transferring this onto something else or somebody else, basically, when in fact you should just deal with it yourself.
Mhm. Well,
So,
reaction. I think reactionary behaviors are incentivized. So it's like
oh, I didn't forget
you're
about that. I
transfer.
did not forget about that. I hate that
Is
shit.
he talking
I
about?
did
Is
not
that a
forget about
shovel?
the high top fade. I did not forget about that, pimping. I remember
The
that.
high
I rolled
top
my
fade.
eyes when before I was going to say it, so I ended up not saying it for that reason. That was the
Is that like
stupidest
kid and
haircut in the
play?
world, huh?
Like is that like the big bot, like the kid and play, like
That was
the
like
big
your kid in plays where like they shave off the whole entire sides, almost like a mohawk, but only you have a box though,
big
or
ass box on the top of
yeah,
your head.
or like
Yeah.
what they'll do is like the MC Hammer where he had the box and he had like the designs on the side and it was shaving down, it was faded down basically. Yeah, that's
Oh,
just
I'd rather have Wolverine's haircut than to
yeah,
have
right.
than to have a freaking box fade or high top fade. But yeah,
Yeah,
the whole I think yeah, that's kind of that is true. And I mean, there's not a whole lot, I guess, that people desire when it comes to arranged or cultural marriages, or they kind of just think about it as quick dating and fuck and uh and never talk, and like try to ghost or try to avoid responsibility, because then yeah, once
yeah,
you
that's
lay
kind of
with
how it works.
somebody, there's a lot of responsibilities that come afterwards, that then you be on social media like, oh, all these ain't shit and nibbas, all these ain't shit nibbas are always leaving me, and like, well, and it's like, but you don't understand. There's certain responsibility you have to take
Yeah.
but men are dogs, men are hounds. They just want me for sex.
Well, and the
But
sad part about that, I
it's
always say that
projection.
that's the
That's
men
all
that you
projection.
choose. If
Exactly.
that's the energy that you give off, that's what you're going to attract to you. You're going to attract nothing more than men that basically want to use you and use you for your body, and that's typically what women do. And then they want to complain about it and blame men for the fact that they're the ones who got themselves into that mess, or they'll say all men when in fact this is your decision. You made this decision. You sleep in the bed, and they'll go, "Well, you're victim shaming." I'm not victim shaming. Was there a crime committed? No. Okay, then you're a dumb fault. And it's one of those things where, like, I can actually accept that, but women don't want to accept that, and they always want to pass blame or project their bad behaviors onto all men. When in fact, you chose those men. Therefore, I'm not. I wasn't one. I look at it like this. I always go to women to go, all men are dogs. I go, wait, hold up. Did we sleep together? No? Okay, then. Shut the fuck up. And that's literally how I respond to women. Like, I don't got no problem with telling them to shut the fuck up then. Because all men
Hmm.
ain't shit, basically. And the sad part about that is the women who complain like that are the women I'm least likely to want to or want to actually have a relationship with. So,
Well,
and this
yeah,
is basically
like
one of those things where it's like, if you can't take responsibility,
it's like it happens to men all the time, but they never let it. Like it's like, oh, you want to use my Netflix and my gas and then leave? It's like, why can't I do the same to you? Why can't I just go to your house?
yeah.
I don't have
And the sad
Netflix.
part about that, that's entitlement.
Watch
That's
the show,
entitlement.
then leave.
That's entitlement because in this day and age, women are entitled to this stuff. Because the sad part about that is, believe it or not, how it actually works is, despite the fact that feminism claims it wants equality, it's not equality. They basically want cash and prizes and every single thing that comes with the cash and prizes, basically, and extra shit. Typically, how it works, the reason why women are the way they are because simps and incels.
Mm.
Simps and incels
55,
make it
55.
easy. Simps and incels make it easy for women to do the dumb shit that they do, still get attention, praise, admiration, and not have to take responsibility for any of the dumb shit that they do. Like a woman could literally like a woman could throw her cat on live stream, which actually really happens, and
True.
all the simps and white knights and incels will justify it was well, she just merely put the cat behind the chair when in fact we literally watched her launch the fucking cat over the fucking chair like it's like the cat was like what's it called, a catapult basically. It's like no lady. And the sad part about that, the white knight simps and the fucking incels are the reason why they can get away with this shit, because the sad part about that is us men that'll hold them accountable are small numbers compared to the white knights and simps that tell them the stupid shit that they get themselves into. However, the problem that women have is if one of us men tell them that she ain't shit, whatever the white knights and simps say and incels say doesn't really matter, goes out the window. Now she's focused on us. Now that she's focused on us, now all her army of simps, incels, and white knights are focused on us now too. So it's one of those kind of things where like now you got to find an army of incels, simps, and white knights basically on top of that shit. That's simply how this shit works, and it shouldn't even work like that, but that's pretty much how it works.
Well, that's
So it's one of those
definitely a
things where like you got
psychopathic
a bunch of men,
trait. Then
ain't shit
if you're
men,
yeah.
literally fighting for ain't shit women.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you're hearing somebody say like all men are trash, or are trying to give you like to try to like say that around you, and you
Mm-hmm.
call it out and you ask them that, and you if they say no we didn't, then you say, which if they said yes, they'd
If
be
they say no, they
gaslighting
did.
or lying.
If
Yeah,
they
yeah.
say no, they didn't, then they're pretty much now they're gaslighting the fuck out of you now.
Then you say, then shut the fuck up. So you shut down the gaslighting. That's like that's psychopath in this day and age,
Mm-hmm.
because like you're literally living in a society that is not aware of this stuff, or that
Yeah, they're
or
aware of the
is
stuff, but the problem,
I guess they're
they're
doing it.
well. The sad part about that, it's not the fact that they're not aware of the stuff. It's the
Well, I was
fact
going
that
off what
they
Americus was saying.
well, no, it's there's not the fact that they're not aware of this stuff. It's the fact that they don't want to take responsibility or accept ownership or accept onus for what the fuck comes out of their mouths. That's typically how the society works. We basically, like I said, we're basically dealing with the society and women on top of that. So not only we got entitled bitches now we got the society of men and women who grew up in the everybody gets a trophy era. So now you can't do anything to them or say anything to them because their fifis will get hurt. It's pretty much how it works. So now you got that on top of this shit that makes this clusterfuck that we're in now. So what happens with that is nobody wants to take responsibility. Nobody wants to take ownership. Nobody is responsible for any of the shit that they do, and it is what it is. Because if you tell them that they are, now you're being mean, and you need to be canceled now. And then in this society, the sad part about that is I don't really agree with the whole entire capitulating to the cancel culture. My things on the whole entire thing is it's kind of like what I say about the Middle East and a lot of the dictators in the Middle East. Sometimes your ass got to be just as crazy, if not crazier, than a motherfucker coming at you. Because the sad part about it, if you're not, you're going to get swallowed whole, and then you're going to be treated. You're going to be spit out the other side. So sometimes you got to be crazier than the motherfuckers coming at you for this reason. So I never get mad at a dictator in the Middle East for being a dictator in the Middle East because
Oh
he's
yeah,
in the
me
Middle
neither.
East. He's got to contend with all these other crazy motherfuckers and got to
Super
try to be,
crazy.
and then got to be
They
try to
smoke
be the
hash.
most
Yeah, like
craziest
that's like
motherfucker in that clusterfuck so nobody wants to fuck with them. That's pretty much how it
Yeah.
works. So you
True
got to be
story.
crazier than a motherfucker coming at you for this reason. Because if you're not, you're going to get cancel culture, or you're going to get chewed up and spit out like a piece of chewed up food, basically, or
Yeah, I
like a
mean,
dog, a chew toy like a
then we're
dog, basically.
they wonder why we have such a weird domestic situation when we have a lot of immigrants, because people like the DNC, they literally like lawnmower over every single blade of grass, and they never show like people local, like they never show American people like what it's like to actually run another country that isn't as quote unquote free as America.
Well,
Like they, so then
it's not
we
even
definitely
that though.
look at people.
It's more or less the problem that we run into the problem of the reason the immigrant thing, like I said, is basically nothing more. Like I said, basically a big ass Ponzi scheme. Because the sad part about that is you kind of sort of need people to make the economy work in America. Sadly,
Well, yeah,
it's
the
pretty much
economy
what it
run on
is.
crime. The
It's like,
economy is built on crime. Like a
well, and the
huge
sad part
portion
about
of it
that,
is based on crime.
the sad part when you talk about crime, you actually have to come up with a definition of what is actually crime. Because typically, what a
Oh, I
lot of these
know. Yeah,
businesses are doing, and
exactly.
what a lot of these politicians are doing, they would consider it legal crime or not crime at all. And what the cartel does, they would consider it illegal for the fact that they can't tax them, so therefore it's illegal. You see what I'm saying? So the fact that if a lawmaker does the same damn thing, there's a chance that you're going to actually tax them, therefore it's legal. You see what I'm saying? And that's simply how this should work. So now you're working with an economy of a bunch of criminals on both sides of the law, basically. Let it be wrong side or right side. You're working with a bunch of criminals and selfish people, basically. So it comes down to selfishness. And the sad part about that is to keep this economy running and keep the money flowing in their pockets, you technically got to start importing immigrants in for this very reason. The sad part about that is had if Americans if Americans didn't do the stupid shit that they did, or make the stupid decisions that they did, or if Simpson White Knights didn't give women the power that they got, we wouldn't need to bring in immigrants for this very reason. You see what I'm saying? And the sad part about that is it's true. If women didn't have all this entitlement and all this power, we would not need immigrants. The reason why we need immigrants is because nobody's having any fucking children. Literally, not having any fucking children. Not including myself, because I done pretty much, repopulated enough for like 2 families for all intents and purposes. That's neither here nor there. 3 families, actually 4 families, if you want to get technical. But typically, the sad part about that is we're below birth rate, replacement. We're below birth replacement rates, so therefore now we need immigrants to replace that. And the sad part about that is after a while, these immigrants start getting accustomed to their surroundings, and they stop having children, and now you got to bring in more motherfuckers because you got to because you need people to basically have children so you can bulk up the base. Because the sad part about that is after a while, because if you're not having any children, you start getting very top heavy. You have no base to actually carry the top for all intents and purposes, if you know what I mean. And when you're top heavy, you have a very narrow base. Shit tends to happen, to the base of your thing, or the foundation of your structure. Basically, it tends to start cracking and falling in, imploding, or a nice wind comes and it topples over, basically. And that's typically how it works. They're basically trying to avoid the topple over or an implosion of their society by bringing in immigrants. That's typically how that works. They're not bringing in immigrants for any other reason besides the fact that they need them, so they can keep them. They can either keep it from a gust of wind from making it topple over, or it imploding on itself from all the weight up top. It's kind of like what they say about people with big ass heads and stuff like that. He couldn't hold his head up. That's why he fell on his head or fell on the ground, basically, and he had no balance. It's the joke that they say about a lot of football players. When they go up for a catch and they can't land on their feet and they got a big ass head, basically. Basically, their head, basically, I mean, that's a joke, though, but, like, not really. But technically, think of it like that for all intents and purposes.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You
pretty much
think
how it
that
works.
selfishness will go down with age, or
No,
like
not when you're born in an economy like America. It don't matter
exactly.
how old you are, you're going to be selfish. Hell, there's that video floating around of an 89-year-old woman that thinks she deserves to have a 20-year-old man take care of her.
There's that other 92-year-old woman. She's like, yeah, I cheated on my husband, or like I caught my husband cheating. It was like I forget what she does, but there's like it was so crazy because like what you just said is totally true. There are a lot of selfish old people.
Yeah, and the sad part about that is like
Kids are
everybody's selfish.
selfish.
No
The
matter
parents are
everybody's
selfish.
selfish to
Everybody's
a
selfish.
certain extent. Everybody's selfish to a a varying degree for all intents and purposes. Hell, I'm even selfish. I'm the least selfish person, but I'm still selfish myself. So it's one of those things where it's like,
Well, it's not being a problem. It's not a problem. It's taking responsibility for being
well, no, because
for
the
how
sad part about
selfish
that
you are.
is like it's one thing to take responsibility when you're caught. It's another thing to not take responsibility when you're not caught. You see what I'm saying? This is typically why I always say like this is typically why women always say like, well, no, men cheat more. No, women cheat more. There's just because you don't get caught, that don't mean it's not happening. And that's pretty much women's train of thought, basically. If I don't get caught, it never happened. You know, it's one of those things like, well, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's pretty much women's thought process on that. The same thing goes for that whole entire thing. If it's in a different zip code, it's not cheating. That's actually a woman. That's actually a woman quote. That's not a guy quote. That's a woman quote. If it's in a different zip code, it doesn't count. Or if it's in another country, it doesn't count. This is typically why married women from like Europe go to places like Africa or Jamaica for sexcations. Basically, they can meet a Jamaican man in their own country, but they typically want to. But the sad part about that, if they do that, now they got the eyes of their own country and the citizens looking at them. So typically they go abroad to actually have sex with other men. This is typically what girls vacations are. There's very few
Oh yeah,
women. There's very few women who go on vacation and not cheat on their husbands. That's a small percentage of women, for all intents and purposes. That's a very small percentage of women, and that's pretty much how it works. And it's like it's not big enough for you to say, well, all women aren't like that. When in fact, the majority of the women are like that. Majority of the women go on these vacations and cheat on their husbands. If they don't cheat physically, they cheat emotionally. They don't cheat emotionally. They cheat. They do various things that would be considered cheating in their eyes if their boyfriends did it. You see what I'm saying? It's different if she does it. It's not. It's cheating if he does it for all intents and purposes. It's simply how it works. So the lines and shit change when it comes to women for when it comes to men. Like a good example, if you hugs, like a good example of cheating is if you're in a relationship, were to hug a woman longer than X amount of seconds, you're cheating. If you were to like a woman's Instagram post, you're cheating. If you were to friend a girl on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, you're cheating. You see how that works? If a woman does it, you're just being jealous. You see how it works?
hmm
So basically, that's the mentality of people you're actually dealing with right now.
true. Yeah, and yeah, like that's true. And I guess when women, American women go other places, does it make them as you know
Yeah, they do it
attractive
just
as
as
like
much
when
as Europe.
American men?
They do it just as much as European women do it. They do it just as
Well,
much as all the
there was
Western
that
world countries
video
do it.
that they were like saying white men have come to Thailand and gone crazy. It's like women, American women, especially
Do the
American
exact
white
same
women,
thing.
whatever,
Like a
they
lot
can
of
do
times,
that
those same
anywhere.
American women or the same women from the Western world would go there just so they
Mm.
could compete with the Thai woman because they want to feel important or special. And the sad part about that, there was an incident with an Indian guy who went to Thailand to meet Thai women, and there was
And
two
that's
women from
projection.
Sweden.
It
Was
is.
it Sweden
Yeah,
or
that's right.
one of them
Yeah.
Scandinavian countries? And he banged a Scandinavian woman that was actually very pretty for the fact that she's trying to compete with the Thai women. Because now, when Scandinavian women got to compete with Thai women, shit got real. Or especially when Russian women got to compete with Thai women, shit really got real. So it's one of those things where it's like you're basically trying to see if you still got it. It's almost like a Stella got her groove back type thing, if you know what I mean. Only for Western women in that country to compete with the women in that country. It's typically how it works. So it's more of a I still got it type thing. So it's like it's more of an ego boost for those type of women who go and do that type of shit because they technically go do the same fucking thing that men do. And the sad part about that is more likely than not they're in a relationship and the men who go and do it are not. You see what I'm saying? And this is typically how
Mhm.
this shit works. More likely than not, a woman is going to go cheat on her husband in another country and be in a relationship than a man going to another country to have sex with another woman. He's more likely not to be in a relationship. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of
Yeah,
those things where it's
or
like he's just pumping and dumping. She's actually in a whole ass relationship, and she's running off to another country to get dick down. It's pretty much how it works. So majority of the women who actually travel are actually in relationships. Majority of the men who travel aren't in relationships. You see how that works?
right, not guilty.
Yeah. So they can't be
Yeah,
guilty of cheating if they're not attached to somebody. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a small majority of men who go on vacation and start banging anything and everything under the sun. Yeah, but that's a small majority. Whereas majority of the women who actually go on these vacations, they typically end up cheating in some way, shape, or form. Let it be, having secret rendezvous on WhatsApp or shit like that, or kissing another man or holding his hand or foreplay or anything like that where they're kissing and caressing each other and shit like that. Basically, she's cheating. Because the sad part about it is women would try to play it off as like, no, I'm not cheating. When the sad part about that, when in society, women,
no, she just wasn't caught,
yeah,
like you
she just
said.
wasn't caught. And on top of that, for a woman, any type of attention is currency. So if it's negative or bad, as long as she gets it, it's good. So in all technicality, a woman getting attention from another man is cheating. If you actually weigh the pros and cons, because women need attention, and if they can't get it from their significant other, they're going to get it elsewhere. And that right there is a form of emotional cheating
Selfishness.
and
Yeah,
selfishness. Basically, it can actually transform into emotional cheating or actual cheating, or what they refer to as harmless flirting.
harmless flirting.
Yeah, because they're getting that attention that they really want and crave. That's typically how that works.
I mean,
This is this is
it'd be the same
this
as
this
like, oh, here, mow this lawn, and I'll give you $20. Don't worry, it's harmless. Nothing can go wrong. You know?
do you run into poison ivy and thorn bushes and shit like that and poison sumac and a locust nest and shit like that. That's pretty much, yeah, women in a nutshell. Harmless dating. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's harmless flirting. That's pretty much women in a nutshell. Locust nest, thorn bushes, poison sumac, poison ivy, the whole 9 yards, and now you're screwed now as a man.
Uh-huh.
And it's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things where women say, I want to be like a man, but the problem is though,
Or
the
then like
risk
when you get guilty,
and the thing
yeah,
about it that women seem to always fail to realize is
risks.
when you go out and cheat, there's a higher risk than there's a higher risk and consequences and debt that you have to
Yeah.
pay
Well,
than it would be
you
for a
take
man
part
to
of
go
it
out and
home.
cheat.
You
Because
take
the
part of
sad
it
part
home
about
inside
that
your
is
body, when you
the
cheat
sad
like
part
that.
about that if you go out and cheat, there's a high chance that condom doesn't work, and now you're coming home with somebody else's baby.
Just mixing DNA,
Hmm.
slobbering all over people, kissing people, sucking a dick as a bunch of other dudes or lots of girls have sucked. Then like all of a sudden you go back to, oh, I'm in a marriage now, and I don't feel guilty because I didn't get caught. Whereas like
Yeah, you don't feel guilty
if
because you
you,
didn't get caught.
yeah,
That's typically how it works. Because the sad part about that, a woman's not going to tell she's cheating unless she actually gets put on blast. A woman would take that shit to her fucking grave, where a man would actually admit to actually cheating eventually. A woman would never admit to cheating. A man would actually admit to cheating eventually. Somewhere, somehow, some way, to somebody, a man will admit to cheating, whereas a woman will take that shit to her grave. And
So how do you perform
the
therapy
sad part
on a
about that
woman
is
if
what I've
she
noticed
can't?
about women.
Like that meme where it's like a woman when she tries to apologize and it's like a person in a coma. Like it's like they're trying to end up in
Would you say a person in a
vegetative
what?
state. Or it's like I forget what I think it's two panels, but one of the panels is like when she attempts to apologize and she's like in like a hospital bed, like hooked up to an IV and a breather, like
Mm-hmm.
she's like in a coma. Because they
Yeah,
can't,
pretty
right?
much.
If you try to get it,
Pretty much take it to her grave for all intents and purposes once she's busted. And the sad part about that, you need serious evidence. You either need serious evidence or you need to keep pressing pressing the issue basically for her to admit she's actually cheating. Sad part about that is she would never admit to what fully went on or disclose what fully went on. Unlike a man would actually tell the whole entire thing, whereas a woman would keep out certain things so she can't make herself, so she can paint herself in a positive light no matter how it comes out. It's simply how it works. So she could be taking like 6 dicks and taking a fucking a gangbang, but she'll say it was only one man. You see what I'm saying? Or she'll say that it only happened once, or she'll say something simple like, it was one time or something like that. Or meanwhile, the sad part about women is women just can't do nothing one time. They have to do things multiple times. And the sad part about it is very rare for a woman to cheat on a man one time and it literally only be one time for all intents and purposes. I mean, it might be with the same guy, but it's not one time. You cheated multiple times with the same guy. And that's another way that women actually, try to lessen the blow, because if it's one person that they're cheating on you with, even if they did it multiple times, they say it only happens one time. You see what I'm saying? You see how that works?
Well, they only get called out for it one time because they're not reminded about it on a constant basis. Kind of like how men are reminded of being
what you're
sexually.
What you're missing is it's only one time because it was one person, despite the fact that she had sex with that man several times. It's only one time. You see what I'm saying? This is women's logic. This is women's logic 101 right here. It's only one time because it's one guy. Despite the fact that they had sex 20 times, various parts of your house, in your car, while your children were downstairs crying, everywhere over the place, after work, before work, on a jog, in the park, everywhere, bar, hotel, whatever. It's only one time. You see what I'm saying? She can have sex with the same man 50 fucking times, but it's only one time.
Or two, like, you could, yeah, exactly. Or she could be actively dating other people, and she doesn't feel like she has to have any sort of like transparency with you about.
Oh yeah, no. But the sad part about that, if you were doing that as a man, you'd be seen as wrong.
Exactly. Right.
You're a cheater. Well, we're not official. We don't got no title, so technically we're not anything.
Because she wants to be first. She doesn't want to know.
And that's simply how it works. And the sad part about that, women always want to be first, despite the fact that you're not first in her eyes. She wants to be first in all those people's eyes, so she can feel as though she can get attention from every single last one of those guys. And that's simply how it works. Because the sad part about that, when you actually start dating a woman, you're not the only person she's seeing. Let's just keep it 100. You're not the only person she's seeing when you first start dating a woman. Unless she's fully committed to you, you're not the only person she's seeing, especially if you're in a quote-unquote dating phase. But typically how it works is a man might go out on 1 or 2 dates, but a woman would go out on 3 or 4 dates. They'll pretty much rotate 3 or 4 dates before they decide on a man, for all intents and purposes. And what I mean by 3 or 4 dates, I don't mean y'all go out on 3 or 4 dates. I mean, she's going on 3 or 4 dates with all these other guys before she decides on a man. So in all technicality, when you're courting a woman in this day and age, you're really not courting a woman because technically you're not exclusive, so you're not courting her. So when you go on dates with women in this day and age, you're basically dating her and competing for her with other guys. It's technically how it works. So it's one of those things where it's like, why is that even happening? How is it even a thing? Because we put them on a pedestal. We put them on a pedestal, and this is how they feel as though that they're special and they deserve all this stuff, when in fact they really don't. And this is typically how this shit works. The sad part about that is you're actually the prize, and she's not, for the very reason that she needs you, you don't need her. Like I said multiple times before, if you take away reproduction, what does a woman offer that a dog, your best friends, and various sexual conquests or toys can't fulfill you, can't give you, basically? What does she have that you can't get from those 3 things? Sad part about that is those 3 things will weigh out to be much more cheaper than she would ever be in a whole entire relationship. Because sadly, if you're going out with your friends, 9 times out of 10, y'all probably passing the bill around. So each of y'all are probably taking turns paying the bill, or y'all probably paying for your own fucking drinks. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where it's like your bill hanging out with your friends isn't going to be that high. Only thing that will probably rival women will probably be your dog vet bills. That'll be about it. Other than that, like even having sex with a random woman or buying a sex toy or a flashlight, whatever the fuck they call that shit, will be way cheaper than having sex with a woman. The sad part about that, buying a $3,000 sex doll is way cheaper than actually having a date with a woman, actually courting a woman. Because at the end of the day, every single last one of those dates add up. Then on top of that, all the gifts that you're going to have to give her throughout the relationship add up to over $3,000,
Yeah, I
well
mean
over $3,000,
pre-existing
and that's well
conditions that you're
before,
gonna
and
get
that's even
from all
before
of
you
them
get to, that's well
other
before you even get to engagement
in your
or
kids.
marriage.
Yeah.
All that shit done added up to over $3,000 when you can go get this one time thing. Now, I'm not saying go get a sex doll, but I'm saying though, equivalent exchange, the sex doll is way cheaper than actually being in a relationship with an actual woman. If you actually sit down and actually think about it and crunch the numbers, that one time drop of money is way cheaper than multiple drops of money throughout the many years. Because you also have to take consideration too. Because what you ain't finna do is get in a relationship with a woman and not buy her a Valentine's Day gift, not buy her a Christmas gift, not buy her a birthday gift, not buy her a Woman's Day gift or anything stupid like that, or a Mother's Day gift. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you need structure. You know, how can he live like this? Just such a. Why is he living such a you know carefree life? He should be doing
In a relationship.
X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
Yeah, and the sad part about that, women hate to see men happy. Even if they're single, women hate to see men happy. That's typically how the shit works. So anytime your happiness has to be impeded or interrupted for the fact that she hates you happy, she can't see that no matter who it is. Hell, your own mom would hate you being happy. Grandma, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, everybody, because typically nephews capitulate the women any damn way. So all the women in your family would hate seeing you happy. Or they'll tell you you're not really happy, and that's a false happiness, when in fact you're actually very happy. The sad part about that is, at the end of the day, men don't really need women for happiness. Women need men for happiness. You see what I'm saying?
hmm
That's pretty much the
Well,
trade off.
yeah.
When you get into a relationship, the trade off is your happiness for her happiness. So your
Yeah.
happiness goes out the fucking window. Her happiness is your prime, your prime objective for all intents and purposes. Her happiness and her pleasure is your prime objective. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you get into a relationship, your happiness means nothing. Your happiness doesn't even rank nowhere for all intents and purposes because your happiness is meaningless. As long as she's happy in a relationship, that's how it works. And that's basically how it works in the Western world. Because like
Yeah.
a good example of that is you'll hear a lot of women, they'll say some stupid shit to you at the job saying, a happy wife is a happy life. That's something I've never heard in Latin culture. That's
Oh,
something
they
I've
don't
never
say
heard
that.
in Latin culture. I mean, it may happen in various other countries, but where I grew up, that's not something I hear too much of. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of those
Yeah.
things.
Comes out of guys' mouths a lot.
Yeah, but it comes out of women's mouths even more. But when a man says it, he's usually rolling his eyes while he's saying it, or he's using there's a shit ton of sarcasm behind it when he actually says it. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of
Right.
those things where you run into that problem with that. Because typically when a man says it, he's either forced to say it by a woman that he's in a relationship with, or when he does say it, his eyes are always rolling in the back of his fucking head. And the sad part about they roll so fucking hard, you're waiting for him not to come back down from the top of his fucking head because he rolls them so fucking hard. That's pretty much how it works. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean?
Yeah. True story.
Because I've never met a man that actually said it without rolling his eyes in the back of his head. I've never met one.
Yeah. True. I mean, unless it was a gay dude.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much her reinforcements at that point. But the sad part about that,
hmm
gay best friends are starting to step away from women because they're tired of actually giving women attention.
Well, anytime you're
When
around
a gay
American
when
women,
gay people are when gay
it's
people
like
are
you're
tired of
doing a
women,
push up or
that's
a
when you know
pull
there's
up.
a fucking problem.
You're doing like a pull up, and you have like a broomstick position underneath you. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm getting exercise, but also like I have a like I have a sneaking suspicion someone's gonna try to like emotionally blackmail me
Hmm.
or like do something. So it's just a lot of high. It's just a bunch of pressure, like to like be around, and then yeah, if they can like peek into your lifestyle at all, if you're interesting at all, they can just like they'll just try to manipulate you and stuff. And like one thing that stood out to me is in the chat was something that was said much earlier. It was like they talk too much, baby. But like how they can. Oh no, yeah, hidden said they blame you because they know that if they were in your position, they would do that. And it's like a lot like with something that you say too. You're like
Well, the sad part about
when
that,
yeah.
the sad part about that is men don't blame anybody else but themselves unless they're raised by a single mother and they're basically trying to pass blame all the fucking time. Typically, is how it works. But typically, men take
Sorry.
responsibility or don't blame other people for the stupid shit that they do, unless it's like a crime. Then they'll, because at that point in time, you want out as any way, shape, or form you could possibly get out. But typically, any regular societal thing, men take responsibility for it and look into themselves to actually do it. The sad part about that is when men would never do that to women, but women will always do that to men. Hell, women would go as far as to do it to pets and kids. This is women's mentality. They'll blame pets and kids for anything just to get out of doing something or just to explain away everything. You see what I'm saying? The sad part about that is women are more likely to do the most sadistic shit to children than men are. Like we read the story about the one woman who killed her husband and then set the house on fire with her kids in it, and then try to drive the SUV into the water with her baby in it, the newborn baby in it.
Uh-huh.
You see what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where it's like, if a woman is willing to do all that, what is she willing? What is she really capable of? The sad part about that is, you could be with a woman for your whole entire life. The sad part about that, you don't know if that woman's actually poisoning you or not, because women will do that shit to you. It's the cold truth. Like the sad part about that, at least if a man's trying to kill you, it's not going to be secret. You're going to see it coming, or it's going to be something very blatant, or well timed. When a woman kills you, it's basically one of those things where she's trying to poison you, or she's going to do it in your sleep, or do it while you're in the hospital or hospitalized, shit like that for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where she takes the most drastic ways to do it that can quite possibly get her caught, but then she's a victim somehow, some way, and she gets less time or no time at all.
Yeah, it's like that's when you see whenever you see women in distress, a lot of women just say, "You go, girl." Whereas like me, I see like a guy making a direct mistake. Like he's spending $16 on flowers, and I'm like, who'd you piss off, and who's not going to be satisfied with those flowers, and why are you doing this to yourself? Why do you tolerate this? It's a direct action that they recognize as stupid, and they try to transfer like, or they when I hear them being sarcastic or laughing it off or being more ironic, I'm like, they're like, you can tell they're working through it along with you, but it's like, I don't know, it's kind of nerve wracking being in that position because like one guy I know that he bought like when like he bought some flowers, he's like, I'm not in the doghouse right now, but I'm anticipating being in the doghouse in the future, so I'm buying these flowers just in the meantime. Like, and I was like, you know what, dude? Uh, what was I gonna wait? What was I gonna say?
How about you
I
break
was
up
like,
with her?
just I was like, this is why you should have bought the nicest couch ever, so that when she says sleep on the couch, you're like, bomb! I
Oh,
fucking
you're
love
talking
sleeping.
about Tico. You're talking about Ticoism. Buy the best
Yeah,
couch on the market. That way, when you sleep on the couch, it's more comfortable than your fucking bed. You're damn right, motherfucker.
and he laughed. He laughed at it. I was like, man, you just need to make sure you can sleep on the most comfortable couch ever, or she could be like, how does he live like this? And you're like,
Because I'm a man,
Egyptian
bitch.
cotton,
It's a
Egyptian,
man's
yeah.
world. Pretty
Or
much,
like
yeah.
how does he sleep at night? Oh, on velvet sheets, on velvet sheets.
Like what I say, it's Egyptian down silk sheets.
Like
that,
1200
that,
thread count.
Egyptian down.
Like sleeping on milk.
Uh-huh.
Anyway.
Basically. Or my favorite is because I have a very comfortable couch, and it's like I'm a very comfortable Chase lounger too. So like if you lay on a Chase lounger long enough, you're out cold. If you lay on that couch, not even for like 5 minutes, your ass is out cold. It's basically like putting a kid in the backseat of a car and driving around a corner real quick and they fall asleep on you. Same thing on that couch. Because like I said, I'm not willing to do something unless it benefits me. I'm not willing to do something. I don't give a damn what it is. I don't care if it's a relationship or what. I'm not doing it unless it benefits me to some extent. And that's pretty much how it is. It's like if it doesn't benefit me in any way, shape, or form, let it be spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or physically, I'm not doing it. It is what it is. So
Yeah.
it's one of those
Well,
things where
a lot of people. Well, the one thing that you didn't mention was financially. So I think a lot of people they somehow get themselves into a financial wormhole where it's like all of a sudden they're getting intense amounts of money from some place, but then they're spending it at the same rate. So they're like not even making it. And then they keep going even further into debt,
true.
which then just like creates this thing. And it's something that we all try to explain away as a disorder when we see it in another person, but it's like that's something that a lot of people do because they're not able to notice what's beneficial to them. It's like
Hmm.
it's like they would rather live in something that's tight that makes them feel like they have no space. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They want to go for the biggest thing because like they can't. They just I don't even know. It's maybe subconscious. Like we just need a lot of space with to fill a bunch of stuff or to like have space away from each other or what it is. It's just a lot. There's a lot of like it's ironic how people can like do all this stuff that is basically being co-signed, and meanwhile they're getting themselves into a bunch of debt. But really, anytime somebody asks them about it, they're like, "Oh, happy wife, happy life." Or it's like, "This is how you live life happy, is to do this." It's like, no, it's not true.
Yeah,
A
basically
lot
with
of them have a sexual appetite that does kind of
well,
transcend
and,
that
and the sad part about
all
that,
that
this is
logical
where a
because
lot of
they're
men
like
fuck up
it's
all the
emotional.
time. This is where a lot of men fuck up all the time when it comes to the sex thing and the sex drive. Typically, how it works is in a relationship, women always want power no matter what. They want the power dynamic so they can feel like they're powerful in a relationship. The sad part about that, how that works is they'll start doling out sex like it's fucking one a day vitamins or something like that, or one a month vitamins for all intents and purposes. And the sad part about that is if you can if you can if you can master your own sex drive, you'll never succumb to a woman for all intents and purposes. The sad part about that is when it comes down to it, what will end up happening is if you're a man that masters his own sex drive, you can pretty much outlast a woman by not having sex. And the sad part about that is if you don't cheat, if you continue to keep it up and don't cheat, what happens then is a woman's going to have to go outside the relationship and look to cheat. And the sad part about that, this is typically why I always say, if a woman's not giving you sex, she's giving sex else. Somebody else is getting sex from her, basically, and it's true. The sad part about that, no matter how much women will deny the shit, it's pretty much how it works. If she's not offering you sex, she's offering somebody else sex. So what happens with that is you as a human being have to know what her limitations are or what she's willing to do and what she's not willing to do. The sad part about that is if you can control your own sex drive and transmog it into energy, like I always say, transmog it basically, all that sexual energy that you got pent up, transmog it into other things, you basically don't have a worry in the world. Because what will happen then is you could just expect her to cheat. Then when this happens, you can pretty much hire the best private investigators or put a tracking device on her phone, shit like that, clone her phone, everything like that under the sun for all intents and purposes, and you ain't got to worry about it, and you'll have a lot of proof about her doing stupid shit. Because the sad part about that, it's only a matter of time if you're actually in control of your sexual urges before she'll start coming back to you wanting to offer you sex randomly at a high rate. Because the sad part about that is one of two things is happening when a woman comes back to you. Either she lost the whole entire hold out on sex thing, or B, she's pregnant with another man's baby, so now she has to trick you into having sex with her so she can convince you it's your baby. That's typically how the two things work. Either either you beat her in the whole entire I could do it longer than you, or I could do it better than you thing with the whole entire, because that basically when a woman's not offering you sex, it's basically nothing more than a pissing contest. It's a pissing match at that point. So the thing is, either you gotta outlast her to the point where like she comes back to you and try to renegotiate some shit, or you gotta outlast her to the point where she's stepping out on you. Now you got proof. Now you can break up with this bitch and take all the shit with you. Because if she doesn't, you can always embarrass her with all the information you have on her. And this is typically what I always tell men. If a woman's not having sex with you, start recording shit. Start investigating shit. Start getting yourself a private investigator. Start all that shit. The minute a woman stops having sex with you, you need to start with all this shit. Private investigator, clone phone, following her, tracking devices, the whole 9 yards. Hell, put cameras up, put nanny cams all through your fucking house.
I know you're dead ass serious, but I can't help out.
Yeah, I'm dead ass serious about that shit, because I'm dead serious about that, because I don't play when it comes to shit like that, because I know something's up if I'm not getting the amount of sex that I normally get, or I know something's up if all of a sudden out of nowhere you want to start having sex every day of the week now. Bitch, please, what did you fucking do wrong? That's exactly what I ask women. Anytime a woman does something wrong, or anytime a woman does something wrong, because I've never had this actually happen to me, but anytime one of my friends come to me and be like, well, yeah, I've been having sex lately, out of nowhere, a lot of sex, she's been a real minx in the sheet. I go, that's because she's probably cheating on you.
I gotta leave, and this was probably gonna be a great red pill parenting number 7. I think you should put that as a topic.
No, right?
Sex regulation and theory. Open your books, your methodology books, to page 2, and observe the chart. As her sexual frequency begins to change, your suspicion level should gradually change.
Yeah, literally, your suspicion level should gradually go up. So as her sexual frequency decreases, your suspicion should increase.
Okay, well, Manly, you have to listen to this back. I have to go. But I want a 300. I want a 200. Okay, I want a 150-word essay in my mailbox about transference and projection by Friday Night Blaze. You guys all have your assignment.
This guy.
Because I really have to go.
And he wants it in 8 form.
Yeah, MLA. No, actually, we're gonna work on Chicago because we have to start producing the literature about this. I'm gonna start a channel on brand YouTube called True Thought Traveler, and I'll be like, "What's up, all my True Thought travelers? We're going to study thoughts and their habits, and we're gonna go like super in depth. We're gonna bring all a bunch of factual evidence and stuff like that too." But you guys have a good night. I'm gonna get going. It was nice being on another Baron and Sadist. Like it on the way out, and that's it. Tico,
what's up, Cypher's Basement? What's up, a Manly Load? What's up, No Sweetheart?
Cypher popped in later in the middle, but yeah.
He popped in the beginning. He was not he came in the beginning.
Yeah, he just commented. He just
commented sporadically, basically,
like right at the right time. I was like, why?
What America's the Ville said, my essay, kick rocks.
Kick rock. Yeah, you can even you just have to have a good excuse. My dog ate it. I had a hospital emergency, COVID, or I was having sex. I was having sex.
I had a coworker actually use that as an excuse for calling off. I'm calling off. Why? Because I'm having sex. I'm like, okay.
All right, I'm calling off.
I tell him you're sick.
I'm calling off from the stream. Peace out, guys. Have a good night, I guess. And I guess improve yourselves and be the best version of yourselves for yourselves and not for female validation. But you guys have a good one.
All right. I guess we're calling it. Okay. Y'all have a blessed night. Be good to yourselves. Treat yourselves like milk the number. Spoil yourselves. And I'll see y'all tomorrow for a podcast in the middle of the day. At like 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, about 11:30 Cali time, I believe it is. So I'll see y'all then. No, that don't sound right. I might have got that. No, it is. That's right. It's right. Yeah. So I'll see y'all then. Y'all be blessed with y'all time. Be good and be good to yourselves and be cool.
Later.
Later.
Bye, niggas. Bye.
Bye, niggas. Bye. And
Oh,
Cypher, I
goodness
definitely set
gracious.
up a day with you too to actually do a live stream with you also. Because I would like to start doing live streams with you regularly also. Because that'll be fun with Cypher, definitely. So I'm going to have to set
Be
up a nice day with you
selfish.
so we can actually do live streams or podcasts together. Because it's always a
Stay
blast to
positive.
live stream with you.
See y'all later, guys.
See ya. Peace. Let me do the outro here. Where's the other one at? I lost it. Overflow. I'm in overflow. No wonder why I can't find it. No, that's not it. No, no. Banner. My favorite one with the feminist. No, 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 no. Where the hell did it go? That's not it either. Damn. Okay, cool. Gotta remember that.